Welcome to the Talk, Listen, Collaborate podcast. My name is Julie, and this is the third part of the mini-series, Student Engagement, How You Can Connect with Your Students and Inspire Their Learning. This episode is designed to serve as an accompaniment to the technology demonstration on social annotations, which you can view on the TLC Learning channel on YouTube. In today's podcast episode, we will focus on discussing the pedagogy behind the tool. Before we dive into the theory, let's first quickly define social annotation. Social annotation is about reading and thinking together. And at its core, social annotation describes processes that combine reading and note-taking with online discussion boards. For example, imagine that you assign an article to read as homework. Traditionally, students might all read independently and then come together to discuss in class or via an online discussion board. With social annotation, however, all of your students can open the article and highlight passages or phrases, add comments, and share ideas about the material, all within the margins of the web page. They can also add tags or descriptions to the material, which can allow users to collate materials and information by subtopic and streamline resource sharing amongst colleagues. To visualize this process further, check out the demonstration. But for now, let's think about this as a tool that can offer opportunities to promote engagement and community in real time during the reading experience. While social annotation tools are becoming increasingly popular, they're not truly a new product. Literature has been describing these tools for almost 2 decades, and some of the most common ones, Hypothesis and Perusall, have been publicly available since the early 2010s. In fact, Hypothesis just hit a major milestone of 40 million annotations. But many of these companies started with humble origins. For example, Perusall was originally created by educators and researchers at Harvard University to shift reading and learning from a solitary activity to a collaborative one. This mission exemplifies the learning theories at the center of social annotation, namely constructivism, and particularly social constructivism, along with collaborative learning. For thousands of years, people have been interested in the processes by which humans learn and by which knowledge is both created and utilized. Therefore, it's not surprising that there are a number of often interrelated theories that have emerged which describe these processes. One theory that is central to contemporary teaching and learning approaches is called constructivism. This theory was informed by the work of psychologists and sociologists, including Jean Piaget and Jerome Bruner, but can also be linked back as far as Socrates. Simply put, constructivism posits that learning and knowledge are not innate or acquired passively, but that understanding is constructed by integrating new information with prior knowledge. This concept was further expanded by the psychologist Lev Vygotsky, who described how this process of creating knowledge is a social activity. Vygotsky argued that learning occurs collaboratively and that knowledge develops as individuals interact with one another and on a bigger scale, navigate in their society and culture. He described how learners depend on one another to help create the building blocks with which to construct knowledge and their own reality. Looking through a constructivist lens, if we could zoom into the mind of a person engaging in a learning activity, we could see 2 major processes happening: assimilation and accommodation. Assimilation describes how new information is fit into an existing schema or mental model. On the other side, accommodation is the process of using new information to update or modify an existing schema or model. So if we think about constructivist and social constructivist theories of learning, we can see how they lend themselves to several key implications for the teaching and learning environments. First, because constructivism does not see knowledge development as occurring passively, classrooms that utilize a constructivist approach would be designed to include ample opportunities for active learning and student engagement. Next, particularly from the social constructivist lens, students not only need opportunities to be active learners, but they also need time to engage in discussions with others. Social engagement and collaborative learning provide space for students to leverage not only their own prior life experiences and classroom knowledge, but also to learn from that of their peers. From this perspective, all learners benefit from the diversity of background, perspective, and thought in the classroom. Lastly, students need opportunities to integrate knowledge into existing mental models or to adjust their mental models based on new information. By doing this process, students generate increasingly complex networks of information, which allows them to apply their knowledge to diverse situations and contexts. As you might imagine, from the constructivist perspective, the predominant role of the educator is not to download knowledge from their brains into their students' brains, but rather to create a learning environment where students are active participants and can engage in collaborative problem solving. The educator serves an important role in facilitating and scaffolding the learning processes accordingly. For example, constructivist instructors seek to frequently activate and elicit students' prior knowledge through activities such as discussions, pre-tests, or warm-up activities. They also provide opportunities for students to engage in activities that are appropriately challenging, which can help students revise and update their mental model or schemas as they work through the problem. Feedback is key here too, because feedback from peers and from the instructor are a critical part of the social learning process and can empower learners and help them address incomplete or inaccurate mental models. An activity aligned with this is called teachback or reciprocal teaching, where in small groups, students take on the role of a teacher and teach one another about a topic. This is a great tool because it allows students to put their knowledge into their own words and to work collaboratively, but it also helps students identify where their own gaps in knowledge are too. Lastly, in a constructivist approach, it's important that students make time and space to reflect on their learning process and are provided both with opportunities to show themselves and to show the instructor what they've learned, both through assessments and reflective activities. Taking these components further, we can see how several instructional strategies or overarching approaches to instruction have stemmed from the constructivist and social constructivist ideas. For example, in problem-based learning, students work collaboratively to identify or create solutions to complex real-life problems. Through this process, students learn to break apart problems into their components, research each, and workshop potential solutions. Similarly, in inquiry-based learning, students pose their own questions on a topic and seek the answers by conducting literature reviews, research, or observations. Students then present the evidence they have identified, which answer the original question, draw connections between their pre-existing knowledge and new findings, and then summarize conclusions and highlight opportunities for future study. Additionally, the instructional strategy known as cooperative learning also has its roots in constructivism and social constructivism in particular. Using a cooperative learning approach, students engage in activities that require interdependence amongst group mates. This can differ from some traditional forms of group work where students might use more of a divide and conquer type of approach to completing the task. So now let's flip back to social annotation tools. Recall that social annotation creates opportunities for learners to read and discuss together in a way that is highly contextualized and authentic. This provides opportunities for students to make connections to their previous experiences and prior knowledge as they engage in the reading material, and to learn from the comments of their peers as well. Students have the opportunity to demonstrate their learning to the instructor through visible comments, but can also make annotations for themselves, where they can reflect on their own learning journey. And furthermore, both peers and the instructor can provide feedback in the discussion. Lastly, social annotation tools can be easily adapted, not only for the assigned readings that might be preparatory work before class or homework after class, but can also be integrated into a literature review process for approaches like problem-based learning and inquiry-based learning that we discussed previously. According to social constructivism then, social annotation tools can help students construct new meaning by engaging in discourse with peers, connecting prior knowledge and real-world applications to the reading materials, and reflecting on their own learning through a process that provides opportunities for feedback and the practice of communication skills. From the theory, we can hypothesize that this activity could positively impact student learning. But what does the data say? Both qualitative and quantitative studies have explored some of the outcomes of social annotations in terms of engagement, promotion of transferable and meta skills, and knowledge development. First, let's look at a recent study by Collier et al. This manuscript, published in 2020 in the Journal of Information and Learning Sciences, found that students felt that using social annotations helped them to actively engage in the readings. Student responses further cited that the tool contributed to feeling like part of a community and feeling valued in the classroom. and that engaging with other students' perspectives and comments not only was interesting to them, but also helped them to understand the material better. This finding also alludes to how students may gain practice in metacognition and communication through using these tools. Indeed, a peer review paper written by Novak et al. Highlights how a number of studies have sought to clarify the impact of social annotation tools in promoting meta skills, including metacognition, but also critical thinking, information literacy, and teamwork. So moving from meta skills to course-specific knowledge, a 2018 paper published in Frontiers in Education entitled Use of a Social Annotation Platform for Pre-Class Reading Assignments in a Flipped Introductory Physics Class found that the cohort that utilized the social annotation tool Perusall for the pre-class readings had significantly higher performance on the same in-class exams compared to the cohorts from the previous year when Perusall was not used. The researchers Miller et al. Further confirmed that this effect was not a function of the cohorts having different levels of prior knowledge on the topics before the class began. Huang et al. Found a similar improvement to knowledge development in their 2007 study, a study of multimedia annotation of web-based materials. And they also identified a correlation between the quantity of annotations and scores on a post-test. While quantity of annotations does not mean that they're all of equal quality, these findings nonetheless suggest ways in which social annotation tools may promote student learning outcomes and deeper understandings of the class material. Also, another important point of consideration is whether students enjoy the experience of using social annotation. In the same study we recently discussed, Huang et al. Reported that 89% of their participants agreed that the social annotation tool VPen was useful for their online reading process, and more than 77% of people agreed that the tool was easy to use. Results from other studies corroborate these results, and quotes from users have identified ways in which students have benefited from the collaborative nature of the tool. A 2013 paper by Gao stated the following regarding the social annotation tool Diigo. Quote, the activity supported by Diigo, allowed me to see others' opinions on the article and pose different ways of looking at the article. I got to see how others felt about the article and compare my opinion with theirs. A few students also expressed that their opinions had changed after participating in the activity. Submissions from my classmates opened my eyes to opinions other than my own and provided the opportunity for me to either change my mind or strengthen my own argument, end quote. To me, these findings highlight how experiences with social annotation tools is very much in line with the social cognitivism approach and shows that users are able to reflect on how the collaborative environment has supported their learning. Additionally, this finding speaks to ways in which social annotation, when used intentionally, may serve as a tool for creating inclusive environments where all students are empowered to share their diverse perspectives and life experiences. However, in their article, Social Annotation and an Inclusive Praxis for Open Pedagogy in the College Classroom, Brown and Croft write, quote, social annotation, while offering opportunities for the creation of new knowledge, does also contain an inherent risk of safety for marginalized student populations. They also add that, quote, to add notes to a text in a public forum is not a neutral exchange of ideas. It imbues power. Whether one is in disagreement or agreement with the text, the assertion of one's perspective upon a text in a public forum either shares power or creates a tension wherein social power is being negotiated between the original author, annotator, and the readers of both these texts. As social annotation works to increase overall student engagement, it's likely that increased conversation, particularly the types of conversations that coalesce around controversial or challenging topics in a text, may lead to more incidents of microaggressions and, as a result, othering. As such, we think it is a vital concern that faculty work to understand the ways in which the incorporation of a new technology and learning experience may further these potential harms, end quote. As such, in their manuscript, Brown and Croft propose a framework for critical social annotation that centers historically marginalized voices and their contributions to knowledge creation, disrupts norms around privilege and access in learning spaces, and explores positions of power. For this article and the others we've referenced, please refer to the description below the video in YouTube. So to summarize, there is increasingly more data which supports social annotation as a constructivist tool, which can help to address some common engagement challenges in the classroom and to support deeper and collaborative learning in what traditionally has been an independent activity. However, since it's still early days, best practices for using it are still being identified, and it's important to consider how to best integrate the tool with your own teaching practices in a way that supports equitable and inclusive environments. So thank you for taking time out of your busy day to listen to this, our third TLC podcast episode of the Fall 22 seminar series. I want to give special thanks to my fabulous TLC teammates, Ms. Brenda Jackson, Ms. Brittany Williams, and Dr. Quincy Conley. We hope you take a moment to tell us what you think about the episode in the comments below. Please share if you already use social annotations in your teaching, or if the demonstration or today's podcast episode have given you some new ideas to explore. And for those interested, there is a link in the description to let us know that you listened and to get credit for the Level Up Certificate program. Until next time, this is Julie, part of your friendly TLC team, saying bye for now.